Yeah.
But
I mean, I liked Shaker. So there's two things I just want to say on that, because this is now the like pop culture gossip side of this, but apparently Shaker is problematic in real life. There's apparently some stuff about that, because I thought he seemed hella wholesome, and apparently with Vinay he has a reason for ghosting that he posted on his Instagram, which reads fine. I mean, maybe it's just that I'm biased because the show presented it in a certain way. It reads reasonable, and if anything, just a little ignorant on his behalf, because like he still could have done better about informing her about said reasons, which I think were something along the lines of hospitalization and not about the heat stroke one that was mentioned in the show, like something else had happened.
how many times
um
are you going to the
but
hospital?
that's a whole, well, yeah, that's the thing, like it read reasonable because it was something that was not related to the heat stroke at all. I don't remember it exactly, but that's just a little piece of gossip, so don't entirely go there yet. I don't know all the details either, but if you're curious,
I mean,
here's the other
look it
gossip
up.
side of this. So
Look it
look
up,
it up.
guys. There are so many gossip sites going
Yeah,
on. Comment in the videos, message us.
yeah,
We're
let us
happy
know, come on.
yeah, we're happy. We're happy to be updated about those things because I have no idea what's going on.
Give me the tea.
Um, but yeah, I think definitely with Nadia, sort of learning point has been, don't dismiss people because of origin or I guess like where they grew up or things like that. People are from different places, but they could be very deceiving. I'm born and brought up in the United States and I'm very Indian. I have so much Indian influence. I'm a classical dancer, I'm a classical singer. I do all of these things. I'm a huge part of the community. So I
I'm
don't
none of
think
those. So
that, I don't think
I'm born in
it's
India, but I was brought up here, and I am none of those things. I only learned how prevalent dancing was in our community, like in the past 6 months, because of TikTok. I'm not even kidding. So
yeah, but that is fine too. I mean,
yeah,
I just think get to know the people, be open to speaking with people, and not just in a romantic way, just in general, be accepting, be open. And especially with what's going on now in the world, we really need that mindset. So that is my piece of learning from Nadia. Oh my
can we get
gosh.
Parmesan off the way real quick? Sorry, my friend calls him Parmesan, but Pradyuman.
Yes. Okay, let's move on to Parmesan.
All I
Uh,
have on this dude is,
Pradyuman.
yeah, all I have on this dude is he started so strong. He started so strong, and then
He, okay, interesting. Continue. I want to
okay,
hear.
because I felt okay, because like the thing, okay, he's still kind of like he comes off very pretentious, but like so I'm not gonna deny that, but at the same time, he comes off, he's like he's a jeweler, he seems really passionate, like those clips made him look like he was very heavily invested in his work and seemed to enjoy it to some degree. And then after that, he's coming out, he's cooking for them, he's like making a bunch of dishes. Where I'm like, okay, you know what, I screw with it. Like he's got some good qualities that one might look for in a husband, whatever. But like, so he's starting off great, and like he seemed all right in like his first couple of character traits, where he's like, yeah, I just want someone that I can kind of like vibe with. I was put off by the idea that he's met so many people and still never vibed with a single one. That's a whole other thing. But then he just got to his third point, which was, I want a girl who's willing to have her flaws fixed. And I'm like, can we leave the hero complex in like the 1800s, please? Like, we don't need any more Shakespeare plays with the whole hero complex bit. Like, you okay? Look, I'm all for wanting to help someone, and if that ends up leading to romantic feelings, I mean that's the plot of like any given romantic film on Netflix right now. But like, don't hinge your entire idea of attraction on the idea that like you're gonna be there for them in that way to help make them a better. That's not what making the other person a better person is about. That's not growth. That's like healing, which is necessary on any given thing. That's like a whole mental health thing. Like that's just being kind to someone. Don't have the hero complex of they need to have a problem for me to be interested in them because then I can fix it. Like that's the just I wanted to throw up in that moment. I was just like, you did. I had my doubts about you, but you were like kind of doing strong, and then he said that BS, and I'm just like, you dumbass.
Oh, that's so confusing to me. I I have been around many males who have this idea about life, and apparently me. Um, yeah, women don't need to be saved. Women are not people who cannot think for themselves or who are incapable of making their own growth and their own ideas and things like that. I don't know. I was really off, but I kind of didn't vibe with him from the get-go. I think he came off to me personally really, really pretentious. And it's funny because that's the only character that my mom prefaced for me because they had started watching it a little bit before me. She's like, oh, this guy's super creative. And it kind of shows like that sort of like, you know, societal checklist that we have going on. Like, oh, he's really creative and he's really capable in his craft, which is great. I mean, for people out there that are capable of doing, you know, great things in their realm of interest, I love it. You know, I support that. But just the way that he was talking sort of in conversation outside of that realm was coming off to me so pretentious. And I think that, you know, when you're meeting somebody for the first time with the knowledge that you're going into like a matchmaking situation, I think it's very important to be respectful of the other people. And there was the first girl that he was set up with who, I can't remember her name. What's that?
Snehal, I believe, from a city that was like, you know, disconnected.
Yeah. And when she said like, oh, I think it was Jalgaon. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it was Jalgaon. Yeah.
And she was like, oh, so, you know, will you be coming to Jalgaon next time? And he was like, oh, definitely not. And I was like, sir, please descend off of your high throne of Mumbai, or I'm guessing he's living in Mumbai. I think that was what it was.
Yeah.
And it was really, to all my Mumbai people, I know I have a lot of friends that are from Mumbai. It is very cool that you guys are taking pride and you're happy where you're from. But, you know, you guys have never been condescending to me, so thanks. But that was so much for you. That was way too much. I think if a guy like was so, you know, demeaning to where I was from and like my hometown that I related to very strongly, I would immediately have walked out of that restaurant. I don't think I would have sat through the rest of that conversation.
Let's be very clear. Vin and I are extremely sarcastic people and like dry. So we're not talking about some tone where the dude, like, you know, you can laugh it off, be like, haha, that's like, you're faking being pretentious to be cute. Like, no, this dude's a dick.
No, it was really, really problematic to me. And I mean, you could tell he came from a very well-off family, and they 100% could have worked for all of that wealth, and it's great, but you could really tell that he had that lens applied to everything he saw in life, is that like, this is my life, this is my luxury and my comfort, which is fine, but I don't think there's ever a point where it's okay to superimpose that perspective onto another person and sort of demean them for being something different than what you're used to. And I also think that when he was meeting with the girl that was a model, I can't remember her name either. It started with an Rishali, I think it was.
That sounds correct. No, Rishali was Yasser's, like the one that like was going well, I believe.
No, that was Rashi.
That was Rashi. You're right. Rishali was the model. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They seemed to vibe well, but like 100%, he 100% was just there for the looks. 100%. Like they seem to like vibe-ish, and like it could just be that they're both awkward because Lord knows how Akshay succeeded in the end. I don't understand how that works.
Fun fact about Akshay, guys, he doesn't get married. Engagement did not go through.
Oh, really?
And Akshay broke it off. And sorry, there's going to be gossip interspersed in this whole video because we're finding it out slowly. But he literally stated in the show, I swear they were talking alone, and this girl really looked like she had just gotten dumped by her boyfriend, or her parents found out about her boyfriend and she was getting forced into seeing some other guy, and she looked miserable. She was a beautiful girl, but she looked really, really miserable.
Wait, is this at the White Temple?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a great. She looks dead into camera, and like she's just like talking in the conversations, like ha ha ha, and then just like has this like full 2-second glance into camera, and I'm like, oh, she is desperate to get out of there.
I felt really bad for her. It was one of those things where it's like, blink twice if you need help, because she looked so in despair to be there. But they literally said like 4 words to each other, and obviously this is film, this is media, there could have been a lot of footage that was cut out, but what was displayed to us as viewers was honestly like 4 sentences of very awkward interaction. And I mean, another disclaimer, I feel like we just need to do a lot of disclaimers because we don't want to be offensive to anybody, but Shreyas and I are both really outgoing people, so we don't necessarily have a lot of issue in starting the conversation like that. But a lot of my family members and my best friends are very silent and very introverted, which we also love and respect too. But I just felt really bad for them because it looked like a very awkward situation.
Yeah, this ain't no that I feel like that's not even a disclaimer that's necessary because this ain't some, we don't know where to carry on the conversation or like, we like each other so much that it's just like, haha, who wants to make the move first? No, this wasn't some cute nonsense. This was just purely dead conversation.
This was really just
Dead conversation. This was her on the phone. They're talking about cats, and she's like, "So what are you doing right now?" And he's like, "I'm talking to you only." Just like, oh, really?
7-year-old cousin tells me that. Like, come on, we need to grow up from that, please.
They're talking about cats and dogs, and it's like 10 seconds in between each sentence, like so long.
I can't with the pauses. But anyways, we
Oh,
find out Akshay made the statement during the show that he's 110% sure. He's feeling very confident. This is the girl that he wants to be with, and all of that. And then he was the one to break it off because he found things out about her. And I was like, well, of course you did, because you guys didn't actually have a conversation, so you didn't know her. So anyways, that's the gossip on Akshay. But yeah, Pradyuman just came off really pretentious. So guys, please check your privilege at the door when you walk into conversations with people. That's probably the biggest thing that I feel like I took away from that. And I think, especially in the Indian community, there is a huge, huge thing about wealth and, like, again, classism and all of those sorts of things where there's societal divides in between large groups of people because of, metrics that really come and go. They don't really matter, I don't think. Yeah. Money comes and goes. And if your family is well off and successful, all the best, good job for you. But that money can disappear really quickly as well. So those are things that just kind of, I don't think that life should be dependent on those. So definitely be aware and, like, check your privilege and be aware that, you might have grown up with a certain lens and perspective on life, but that doesn't mean everybody else has grown up with that.
yeah. I loved what his sister said about that.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Yeah. Because her entire thing was just like, yeah, you can't open up immediately. Like, it takes time to open up. And I love that she was so bold to be like, yeah, even with my husband right now, like, I still feel like I'm a little reserved. And I'm like, yes, that is a good message for him. And like, that's the entire point of the privilege thing, where it's like, yeah, don't just, assume that your different facets of life doesn't mean that you can't immediately understand each other on some level, because, you should still be learning about each other as you go. Like,
yeah, healthy relationships, guys. It's not all set in stone from day one.
It's not that hard to understand either. Please.
That's the thing that's also perpetuated. And I mean, obviously there is a boundary between those things. You can't have two completely, incompatible people and say, oh, well, marriage will solve everything, because it won't. And it will be a terrible time for everybody involved. So
even
that's
a face reader could tell you that.
Huh?
Even a face reader could tell you that.
Face reader. I love that guy. I want him to read my face.
You what?
I want him to see my face and, like, tell me, because
okay, but this is like a curiosity thing, not like,
yeah, no, he was
not like I need to know to learn something.
No, but he was very interesting, man. But yeah, I just think he was very condescending, Pradyuman, as a person, and hopefully, he gets better and learns better and finds somebody good for him. But yeah, guys,
yikes,
and just people in general. I'm not aiming this just at the men, but please be aware that your, like, perception of life is not always everybody else. Okay, moving on to one of my favorites, Vyasar.
I want him to be my school counselor.
Vyasar.
This man is the best. I want to be adopted by his
family. Where were our brown counselors in high school? Because I did not see any. And I would be super excited to have one. He is such a, like, complex and interesting character. He's obviously got so much, emotionally that he is kind of dealing with obviously his family background and his parents being divorced and things like that. But I think what was really highlighted to me was the fact that, again, that was sort of a, like, splotch that made him, like, undesirable. And it kind of made me really sad when he said that about himself. And I know that on a societal level, it might be true and that might be how people perceive it, but I didn't feel like that was something he should have had to internalize at such a young age. And obviously when, none of this stuff was his fault or his mom's fault, it was a man who chose to make a decision, and he happened to be his father. So it was definitely very telling in terms of how the Indian community sort of handles that sort of trauma, which is very outside the norm, right? You know, having a father sent to jail for conspiracy to.
Oh, spoiler. I didn't know you were gonna go for it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. We told you from the beginning, but
Yeah.
conspiracy to commit, man, like that's intense, you know, and that's something that, like, yeah, maybe we don't know how to deal with, but I think it was very telling that he was so afraid to bring it up, and I just felt really bad because it wasn't anything that he did or contributed to, and I didn't think he should have, you know, felt that scared to talk about it, but I can totally understand that mental processing completely works different for everybody. But yeah, hopefully, I don't know, one of the takeaways from Vyasar is that we are more accepting and open to hearing people's stories, and not dismissive and just kind of making a conclusion because, oh, this is what they said, and that means that they're a bad person or they're like stained in some sort of way. I think he was the most pure character on the show.
Honestly, I even found that the whole like bit that failed initially with Manisha, I loved that so much because like
Yes.
that's an area of like, okay, yeah, that's an area where, you know, when you date, you might not immediately, like on a first date, I'm not talking to anyone about how I'm raising my kids. Like that's a thing here. So it's like that's a good, like, I don't know, like 6 month-ish thing maybe, I don't know. But like, and so like, but in this context, you know, they're trying to get married, so of course it's gonna come to the forefront of the table. And like, I still don't exactly know what their thing was. I think he wanted to have his kids homeschooled and she didn't. She wanted to send them to an education system. But like the fact that they handled that disagreement so well about being like, yeah, I don't think this is something that we can really agree on, and this is very important for us, especially in a marriage, which is what we're doing. And they handle it beautifully at the end. They're just like, yeah, I wish you the best. I hope you find someone else in this process. Thank you. And like that was like the most realistic bad thing that happened on the show.
Yes.
I loved
Honestly,
it.
claps for that. It's such a mature way of handling situations. And again, breakups are really stigmatized in Indian community, and people are faulted for them and given all this blame. And I think it really was so great that, you know, they were very mature about it, and they said like, hey, you know, it's fine. Obviously, we have these differences of opinions, and she was constantly respectful towards him from what we see of the footage, and he was respectful towards her. And it was just a very like nice and kind moment. And I think it was great. So I think, honestly, I think Vyasa is great. But definitely learning point in communication and like maturity. And I think that he executed a lot really, really well on the show. And, you know, hopefully that he feels like he's on the process to healing and all that sort of stuff. So I am a huge fan. Okay, guys. Actually, technically, one more person that I do want to talk about really quick before getting to the big blockbuster dhamaka of this TV series. I want to talk about Rupam because she is bomb. So she's a divorcee. She has.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that's a good segue.
I was so happy that she just totally disregarded Seema Auntie and went on Bumble and found herself a great man who is like super happy to take in like her little family as well as her.
Yeah.
That was so awesome because, you know, a lot of the times, again, especially in this community, but in many communities, we are told something from the get-go so repetitively from so many different people in the community. And honestly, it's not really a founded reason. You know, being a divorcee, I understand, might have some, you know, emotional things involved in it that when you are in a relationship with another person might come out and might be something that you guys need to work together on and sort through and process.
Especially with a kid.
Yes, especially with a kid. Obviously, once children are involved, things do get more difficult. But I don't at all think that is enough of a reason for Seema Auntie, a woman, to walk into a situation and say, this is going to be really hard for you because you have a kid. It, you know, I'm so glad that kid didn't ever hear that.
Yeah, no, okay, there's a thing about the kid hearing it. That's it. I don't, again, this might be the side of me that's too accepting, where it's just like, this is a part of arranged marriages that, you know, because how we deal with arranged marriages, the show shows a lot of examples of what not to do. That's the very idea or the institution of arranged marriage. I think that's one of those things that is kind of realistic in it, because I mean, like even if on Bumble or something you found someone and they're like, yeah, I have a kid, like how
Oh
many
yeah, it's totally realistic. I
yeah.
don't think that it's not realistic, but I personally would like to see people straying away from that. And not only that, I think my main point about her is the fact that she didn't let all these people talk her into, not finding companionship and a relationship for herself when she wanted that. And she didn't let those comments sort of stop her. And I think a lot of the times our self-image unfortunately can be constructed by the things that people say, especially at moments where we feel weak or vulnerable. So it's very important, to be conscious about who you're talking to. If you're talking to people that are constantly taking advantage of a moment where you feel weak or you feel, hurt, and those are the moments that are going to stay with you. And the people that respond to those moments are going to stay with you. So please, I've had my fair share of, being sort of hurt and upset by people's reactions during those times. And a lot of the time it did construct a sort of self-image of me in my head, because that's what people were saying in a time that I was maybe more vulnerable to hearing those comments or internalizing them. So, be compassionate towards people who might be in a tight spot and who might be, feeling like they're sort of pushed out from the general bounds of things. But also, if you are somebody who is feeling a little down or who's feeling like, oh, well, I don't have hope, like, please, I hope that you find good people to talk to. If not, Rowdy Rani is really always open. We want to make mental health and discussion a huge thing here. So if you're ever at that point, please do reach out. But it's very, very important to be careful about how we're communicating to people, especially when they come to you with something that might be tough or that might be difficult. And I'm so glad that Rupam totally was like, yeah, maybe that's a thing. Maybe you think that, but I'm still going to go out and like do that, do the things to do to find somebody. And she did end up finding somebody. There are 100% people out there that would be totally fine with that.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy for her that she found someone. And technically, I actually don't know if they're still together. So if you guys know, I always love doing this. I'm sorry. Whoever's listening to this in podcast format, you're very lucky that you're not watching my dances in this whole thing.
Yeah.
But comment if you know what happened to Rupam and her bumbleboo. But
if you're on Spotify, you could, I think if you're on Spotify, then I think you just have to message us on Instagram. But if you use Anchor, which is the distribution software that we use to get our podcasts out, you can leave voice messages on the Anchor website for us to potentially listen to and interact with. That said, Anchor's UI is kind of a pain in the ass, so I wouldn't be terribly surprised if you didn't. If not, go to YouTube, go to Instagram, just tell us. We want the tea.
We want to know. We definitely want to know. So yeah, snaps for Rupam, girl power all the way. I'm super happy for her. But now we're coming to the big guns. And you guys are probably like, please be done.
Yeah.
But, okay, guys, we're ready for the big one. Seema auntie. Seema Taparia from Mumbai. I was getting prepped for our episode.
I could see you definitely practiced that one in the mirror.
Yeah, I really was getting prepped. My sister has been very passionate about having this be our first episode.
She was the first one to vote.
She was very excited that this was an option. But even on Wikipedia, if you look up the show, it says main character Seema, and then in quotes, Seema Taparia from Mumbai, and then end quotes, Taparia. And it really is. It's like a nickname, you guys. It's really severe.
No way.
So Seema auntie. I like have a headache thinking about her. Okay, so here's a preface that I think is really important to put out there. We understand that Seema auntie is from a different generation, and maybe her views of society and especially marriage and arranged marriage were formed and constructed by a very different society and group of people than the group that we interact with. And we are blessed to be in this current generation because we, have access to people of the world. You know, we're talking to people worldwide. You know, platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, whatever it is, you hear opinions from so far and wide, and, you know, you can take those in and grow with them. So we know she's from a different generation, which is okay. But, you know, again, like we were saying, evolving and growing is a very important part of life. And, you know, you kind of have to be open to doing that. And I just, okay. She's, to me, the prime example of why the patriarchy can, like, persists to be a larger system, is because, unfortunately, women like Simanti are convinced about certain viewpoints of women need to compromise, or being an independent woman, it's going to be harder for me to get you a match, or, you know, she mentioned so many times fairness. You guys, colorism is so linked
That's
to
like at least
British
3 episodes.
colonialism. Please understand this.
That's at least like 3 episodes worth.
Yeah, I mean, we're totally going to do a different one about colonialism and Eurocentric ideals, and that's going to be a
Anything
whole
we touch on right now, guarantee there's an episode about it. Again, this is a comprehensive table of
100%,
contents for everything else.
100%. But I think what was really weird was that, you know, there are young people who are watching this show, like obviously my sister and a bunch of other kids her age are watching it. And there have been questions of, well, am I like too dark to be pretty? Like, why can't dark people be pretty? And like, I've heard that question, and it's so heartbreaking to me, because you know, it really feels like we have so many great, you know, young brown people of our time who are speaking up about these things and saying, you know, no, that's not the way it is, and we are not going to conform to that. And it's very, very sad to see these sorts of shows and these sorts of people and characters who are pushing that viewpoint forward to the extent where it is allowing young children and young people who are still forming their ideas upon things to be influenced like that. So if there's any young viewers out there, please know that the color of your skin does not make you more or less beautiful. You are your own person, and you are brilliant, and you are important, and you are beautiful as is. That is such a terrible concept. And I just think it was very shocking and like jarring to me to realize that, to have a young person say like, oh, well, am I like too dark? It's things that they haven't even really thought about that are being put into their head because of media. And
Like, it's such a, the fact that it's so pervasive is just annoying. It's like, it shouldn't be this thing. You know, childhood innocence obviously gets tainted at some point when we learn about things. Like, you
yeah,
know, every kid is friends with every other kid. It takes 2 seconds to become a friend. It's just because, you know, you're group partners, you sat at the same table, whatever. But like, the idea that these things suddenly have to be a topic of discussion among young kids, and it therefore stigmatizes them in certain ways that affects their mental health.
yeah, I think it's very, again, younger kids are malleable, and, you know, their minds are sort of more able to take suggestion and maybe build that into their own ideals and self-image, which I personally am aware of. And I think it's just very unfair. So, I mean, it's definitely a more serious point, but I think she's a very problematic character in this show. I won't say person, because maybe as a person she's different than who she, you know, puts herself out there to be on TV.
Mm-mm.
But I mean, I
Mm-mm.
would hope, but it sounds like no.
Yeah, there's the same person who produced this show apparently also made a movie in like 2017 where I think she also featured, and apparently her general character persona matches fairly correctly to what Indian matchmaking portrays.
I tried to give her some benefit, but I guess not. Um, so yeah, Seema, very problematic. We don't do colorism here. That is absolutely not a thing. Um, and the number of times that she has implied that her life is going to be more difficult because a woman is independent and has a career that she's focused on, and her significant other is not going to be her like first and only focus every day of the year. Like, calm down. It's fine. I mean, you take on the cases that you want to take on, and if you have problem with independent women, just don't. Like, they can find someone for themselves, and it's fine, and we're gonna be cool about it. Like, move on. I think she's I just didn't understand like why she was so upset about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, can we discuss the fact that Seema literally thinks she's doing the work of God?
Yeah, no, I love that where it's like, yeah, no, I think what was the statement? Yeah, God has
That God makes
ordained
heirs in
me.
heaven, and
Yeah,
as
and I'm here
me
to.
here on earth, it's my job to bring them together.
Yeah, it's like it's my job to get the 100%. It's like if,
Seema.
but yeah, well, I mean, I think that is part of it. That was one thing where I think because like even in the disclaimer when we said like, yeah, this is clearly westernized, where it does entirely feel like it's made to be very easily criticized by even members of non-South Asian audiences. I wonder, is that the best way to get the interaction, the reaction, like this reaction? Is that the only way we would get this reaction? Because I think if it was done any better, where it was educated, where like Seema Auntie was very clearly painted to anyone else as like not really having the right ideals when she's matchmaking. Like if she was painted in any more of like a humanized light, you know, given context about colonialism and how this has impacted her views or even her views as a kid, like would that have made less people listen? Or would that have made it a lot harder to criticize
I
it
don't,
compared to now when we can pretty much just say, yeah, the show was whack, these ideas are all bad, but this criticism is the only way to get the conversation going in the first place? Like this degree of it.
I personally don't think so, and I'll say this because there have been great influential films that have come out in the past, like let's say 3 to 5 years
Yeah.
in Indian film, that have sparked conversation, and they've sparked conversation in a positive way.
Yeah.
And this is
I like the
something that
slap.
yeah,
I'll just put that one in there because I love that one.
which one?
The slap or tapad, I think that's the
Oh,
official.
Thappad.
That I
Yeah, Thappad
love
was
that
really
one.
good, guys.
Love
Watch
that one.
it. Let us know if you want like a recommended movie list from
Yeah.
the Rowdy cast, because we would love to do that.
You recommend them to me, please. God, I
Yeah.
need more movies.
Thappad was really good. Mission Mangal was really good. It was obviously discussing a very specific event. For those of you who haven't seen, it's about India's Mars landing. I'll try not to give any more spoilers. But it's an incredible female cast, you guys. There are so many powerful women who are part of that cast. And not only that, even their characters within the film, even, I mean, outside of film, they're great, wonderful, independent, educated women. But even within the realm of the film, these are all like nationwide ISRO scientists, which is the Indian version of NASA. And so each one of them has a very unique personality. So it's not a cookie cutter female role, but they all, you know, came together and added value to that film. And I'm so happy to talk about that film as well. So I don't think that we need to have something so starkly negative to actually be able to have discussion about it. Like it doesn't have to be so negative that it's cringy and that we're like, what the heck are you talking about? We have to talk about this. I think it is a certain way to spark the conversation and to start the conversation. But personally, I wouldn't take that route if I had any other choice. I think we can make really impactful media and have that be a catalyst and the starting point for a lot of conversation. We saw Dangal come out a couple years ago, which was also phenomenal. So many great movies out there, you know, and we're starting to sort of understand again that value of film and media. So I guess to say to that point, I don't really think that it has to be as negative, but I don't think somebody like Seema Auntie would have sat down, like, was sitting down and really like understood why do I have this point of view. I think it's been passed down, and
I have zero like hope that, you know, she would be cognizant enough to say that, you know, I'm doing these things because they match the ideals of the families. No, she 100% believes in these ideas.
Yeah,
There's no I'm compromising on behalf of the family type thing going on here. That's not happening. So I'm definitely not that naive to hope for that. But
yeah. Another thing I find really problematic with Seema Auntie that I think is such an auntie thing in general is the fact that they seriously think they're putting in so much effort to make the cogs of the universe make something happen. Like she literally says like, I'm putting in my efforts 24/7, but the stars just aren't aligning. And I'm like, okay, girl, it's matchmaking, it's marriages. Like I understand it's a very large and integral part of our community, but it's really not like the extent of what you're making it to be, you know, like Trace and I are both pre-med and we've been involved in the medical and science field. I just started working in emergency medical services. And so it's very weird to me when people have these conversations like, oh my God, I'm doing the work of God. I'm putting in so much effort. But like, I'm seeing, people with really impactful careers on actual other people's lives that have other people's lives in their hands. And it doesn't just apply to doctors. There's so many careers out there that affect other people's lives. And it's just very weird and really trivial to me to see somebody come on TV and say, like, to this extent, right, that like, I'm working so hard.
We're not, this isn't that we don't appreciate faith, because I don't think that's definitely not the idea here, which is that it's blind faith that minimizes work to just being faith. That's like that weird distinction where I feel like it happens, where it's like what doctors are doing, it's not like, for example, around Easter time, I think there was a pastor who was like, I'll preach about how God's going to protect all of us, and held a Sunday mass. Lo and behold, 80% of them had coronavirus, and so did the pastor. It's like, that it doesn't, you can't just minimize what doctors do under the category of faith. That said, please don't interpret this as, we don't think faith isn't important, or that we are like atheists or something, because I don't think either of us really are. But so I just want to make that one clear, because like for a second, like it could have come off that way.
100%, you guys. Faith, religion, culture, all of it is important, but she makes it seem that like the work that she's doing, like, maybe it's busy and taxing, but like it sort of shows the mindset that the Indian culture has, is that like getting people married and matchmaking is like such an intense part. And even if it is her profession, it, in the grand scheme of things, it's something that's either going to happen for somebody or not going to happen for somebody. But it's something that she is so invested in. And I guess I'm happy for her clients that she's invested, but it's something that to me is really blown out of proportion. I think, most people can agree that sometimes we sort of see aunties that are coming off again with this rhetoric, right? It's about how we speak and how we put a point out there, and saying the rhetoric of like, oh my God, I'm doing all of this. And just like really like, kind of going beyond the scope of what's actually happening and that sort of thing. So Seema auntie, we could talk about you for ages, but we will not, because
we'll reference you when we talk about other topics, if that helps.
Yeah.
You'll get the clout you want.
There will be a lot of Seema auntie footnotes, but I think essentially, we all understand what she is. And I think the takeaway from this is, we've enjoyed talking about the show. I was cackling watching the show. It was very humorous to me.
I could not physically get myself into enough pain to expel the cringe. You were laughing, but like I flickered in between being like, that's so ridiculous. I'm so glad I'm not in that, to like, end me now.
It was a rough process, you guys. We struggled watching it. But like I said at the beginning, it is kind of that train wreck that you can't look away from. So it is what it is. But the most important thing is, I hope you guys realize film and media and the things, not even just that, everything that's being presented to us is very important in constructing our ideals of who we are as a community and culture, as well as people who might be outside of this culture. I always want this podcast to be applicable to people of all backgrounds, and I don't ever want it to seem super limited to South Asians. Like, we might discuss those issues, but there's always ways to apply those same concepts in everybody's daily life. So just be very critical consumers of what you consume, and it's fine and fun to watch it for fun and sort of laugh at it, and all of that is fine, but definitely make sure that you are addressing the problematic aspects. Have conversations. It's been a really great way to open conversation with my younger sister, with my parents. We've really enjoyed talking about, what we consider problematic and things like that. Go ahead.
No, I think actually specifically bringing up people who were not of South Asian audiences, because I know for a fact that like 3 of my white friends have watched the show. And it's like, I think even this podcast especially, like, I think it's really important for them to listen to too, because then you can have that conversation with them about how, maybe if they've had certain microaggressions too, because like we all laugh at, Bauji jokes or something from Phineas and Ferb, but like there's a certain point, where it does affect us. It's not like, there's a point when, you know, we're handling it appropriately, and then where we're just repressing it and then putting on the show for the outside. So I think it's equally important to get this to your non-South Asian friends, so that way you can spark the discussion with them, because that's the way that you get it off your chest. That's the way that they even learn. And so like that's equally important. So don't think that this is something that, like, the entire premise of this is to inspire members of the South Asian community, but then also spark the discourse about these South Asian topics outside of it.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the things, maybe because we are members of the South Asian community, we see it highlighted within that context and that lens. But ultimately, a lot of these issues are pervasive throughout many communities. They can just manifest in different sort of ways. So it's very important to sort of, you know, really try and empower yourselves. And we want to be empowered by hearing you guys and hearing the conversation that all of this sparks. And just, you know, be critical consumers about the things that you are listening to, that you are taking in. And it's easy to sort of say, oh, well, everyone's doing it, let me just do it. And sure, but, you know, definitely think about it and build your own ideals, and, you know, just make sure that you are doing things that are actually important to you and actually talking about those things as well, no matter what it is that you choose to indulge in on your Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah.
But with that, my friends, my rowdies, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so sure this is extremely long.
We're at about 80 minutes, I think, now. So
Good luck to Shreyas for cutting this, because I'm not going to do it. We have enjoyed having you here. Please message us on Instagram, comment on YouTube videos. Let us know what you guys think. We're really excited to hear your thoughts. And
let us know if you have criticisms of our thoughts.
Yes, please, please. Criticism is great. Again, be constructive, be careful of your rhetoric, and be kind, because that is what we promote and support here at Rowdy Rani. But we would love to hear your thoughts, whatever they are. We are so glad you tuned in. And again, thank you guys all so much for your overwhelming support. And hopefully you feel like you can share the page, share videos with people, and really just spark discussion and build that community. But that's all for today. So guys, stay rowdy, rise up, and uplift others always, and take care of yourselves and stay safe. Have a good time.